Hello everyone, welcome to Disamtex promotional video about rust converter additives. Disamtex is an additive manufacturer based in Blumenau City, south of Brazil, and it is specialized in chemical solutions for the paint industry. So if you're interested to know more about our portfolio, check the description box below. And I would like to introduce you to the family of products, so-called the rust converters. So feel free to comment about your experience in paints and their additives after watching the video. So let's get started. When we talk about rust converters, we deal with rusted, oxidized surfaces and additives to avoid this phenomenon. Corrosion is a huge global issue, as you may know. As a curious fact, it's estimated that around 3.5% of the world's GDP is lost every year just fighting corrosion. And that includes maintenance, protection, and replacement costs. So, to give you an idea of the scale, about 30% of all steel produced worldwide goes simply to replace oxidized, corroded parts. Now, corrosion can appear in many different forms, evenly distributed, pitting or intergranular, filiform, or even around welds. Um, each type depends on the environment and the metal's composition. So to fight corrosion, we have several strategies, from chemical treatments like chromatization, metallization, phosphatation, to protective coatings such as paints, rubber, cement, or polymer layers. Cathodic protection is also used, especially for structures exposed to water. But in many cases, the most practical and versatile solution remains the use of high-performance coatings. That's where we come in. We want to help coating producers develop a rust fighter paint. An additive for rust can be found either as a rust converter or a corrosion inhibitor. Disamtex focuses on the rust converter, which is a corrective agent rather than a preventive one. A converter will transform an already existing rust into a chelate and basically nullify its progress. An inhibitor would rather prevent new corrosion processes to start. So a converter is applied over rusted material to protect it from inside, whilst the inhibitor over a clean metal, because its intention is to protect the coating from outside. This difference is really important. And this is what happens. A rust converter is applied onto an oxidized metal, and the chemical process of passivation transforms it into a chelate. The oxide turns visually dark. Visually, there is a black stain that appears when the additive is applied onto the spot where oxidation was present. And Disamtex products in the rust converting category are most importantly these three: one for solvent-based, and two for water-based. Something that needs to be highlighted is that Dacode, RC25, and RC30 are not additives for the anti-corrosive paint itself, but actually a concentrated liquid to prepare a pre-treatment primer. Okay, but let's go with the solvent-based additive first, which is called Dacode RF. RF is highly recommendable for industrial maintenance, direct metal paints. RF doesn't eliminate the need for an anti-corrosive pigment, which works to prevent external factors from causing new rust formation. Remember, I told that before? So the anti-corrosive pigment is the corrosion inhibitor that will act preventively and impede external factors to create new oxidation. So what we are talking about is an additive to make a 3-in-1 enamel, the protective layer of the coating plus the anti-corrosive pigment plus the rust converting agent, which is Dacode RF. And the anti-corrosive pigment acts as a sacrificial anode. It chooses, in codes, to deteriorate itself instead of the metal substrate. RF will come in as a third element in addition to the resin's protective layer and the anti-corrosive pigment. It acts to inhibit the existing corrosion from progressing. In other words, it's a rust neutralizer. It neutralizes the existing rust from getting bigger and deeper. This is how 3-in-1 enamels cans are promoted. The cans emphasize the three functions: coating, new rust avoidance, and old rust neutralization. Here you can see RF's dosage and when it should be incorporated. So it's quite simple. You say 1% just before the dryers, and the 3-in-1 enamel is done. This formulation describes a solvent-based anti-rust primer designed to stabilize and protect steel surfaces. Alkyd and phenolic resins form the binder system, providing adhesion, film integrity, corrosion resistance. Then pigments and fillers, titanium dioxide, kaolin, zinc phosphate, will reinforce barrier protection and anti-corrosive performance. And finally, Dacode RF acts as the rust converter, chemically transforming residual rust and improving substrate passivation. So the second part includes metal dryers and additives to control curing, skinning, final viscosity for application, right? And this is a weathering test I wanted to show you. And some people may wonder, how do we evaluate RF's efficiency in the real world? And the answer is through a natural exposure test. Clean metal surfaces with an anti-corrosive enamel on top can be evaluated by the salt spray chamber. Now, with rusted metal, 3 sheets are selected and then coated with a 3-in-1 enamel and finally exposed outdoors on the roof, for example. After some months, the applier goes there and does a verification, checking how much rust migrated to the outside surface. Remember, the rust converter acts from inside out and not the opposite. And the trophy goes to Dacode RF, winning the golden medal. And why? In the beginning, they all look great and perform the same, so you don't see a difference. However, after 8 months, in this case, we start to notice how Dacode RF, first line, at a percentage of 1% in the total formula, remains whiter, meaning less rust migration to the surface. And the other 2 competitors go off. A second and third product is Dacode RC25 and RC30, which is a water-based version to formulate a primer. Not a traditional additive to put in the paint formula, but rather a concentrated liquid that functions as a primer and a pre-treatment before a top coat. So it's the same approach of RF. The principle is the same. The rust converting property gives a dark visual aspect to the rusted surface. There's no need of washing the surface first. You can apply it right away. And Dacode RC25 has already a resin that creates a film enhancing protectiveness. And the only requirement is to dilute RC25 in water and acidify it with a strong acid. We recommend phosphoric acid in the proportion of 70-30%, but actually this number may be 50-50 or 60-40 too, if the matter is higher performance. It's up to the customer what proportion is most desirable. And a 50-50 percentage will give the customer a higher concentration of RC25 and consequently a higher effectiveness. And the passivation principle is activated by a low pH. So that's the reason a phosphoric acid is added. That's how RC25 looks. You see how it gets darker with time. A rust converter is greatly advantageous in house maintenance. As a primer, RC25 can solve problems of steel corrosion and daily issues. The initial phase of preparation, you see here. Then pre-treatment with a primer made with our rust converter. And check the result out. An even possibly better solution is RC30. This one already contains an acid, so it's basically a ready-to-use primer. If customer prefers a concentrated and more versatile version, RC25 may be the right option. If the customer would simply like to bottle the product and resell it, then RC30 is the case. And this one is Dacode Flash 350. This one is a specialty additive designed to prevent flash rust during the application of water-based and emulsified coatings on metal substrates. It's neither a corrosion inhibitor nor a rust converter, actually. So it's an anti-flash rust, and it doesn't neglect the need for a long-term protective action. Instead, this additive works as a short-term oxygen scavenger, temporarily suppressing the electrochemical conditions that trigger a rapid, instantaneous rust formation. So it's to avoid the immediate rust. And this makes it especially effective under high humidity or wet application conditions, including painting on warm or hot steel. And its role is to protect the surface during application and early drying, so not to replace conventional anti-corrosive systems. Fantastic. That's all from me. And I thank you for your treasured attention. I make myself available, and we hope our conversations can go further. So feel free to get in touch. Bye.